Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rajesh, and in this video we'll cover some basic interview questions on .NET Blazor, which is a powerful web application framework from Microsoft. But before diving into the questions, let's quickly understand what Blazor is and why it is very important for C# developer. So let's have a look at the introduction to Blazor. As per the book, the definition goes, Blazor is a free and open source web framework developed by Microsoft that lets developers to build interactive web UIs using C Sharp instead of JavaScript. Yeah, you got me right. Instead of JavaScript, we can develop a full stack application. Well, what does it mean for us? As a data, sorry, as a .NET developer, you don't need to learn a completely new language to build full stack application. Blazor runs on .NET and then uses Razor syntax, which combines C# and HTML just to create dynamic client-side web applications. In short, Blazor allows you to leverage your existing C# skills to build full-stack web applications without switching to JavaScript framework like React and Angular. So let's look at the timeline of Blazor. So Blazor started as an experimental project in 2018, and then it officially became part of the .NET ecosystem with .NET Core 3.0 in 2019. And they introduced WebAssembly version in 2020. It was released with .NET 5, allowing applications to run fully in browser. By 2022, with .NET MOVI, Blazor Hybrid enabled building cross-platform native apps using Blazor UI. And with .NET 8, Microsoft introduced Blazor United, combining the best features of server and WebAssembly hosting. Why exactly the Blazor is created? What is the idea behind it? So for a long time, .NET developers has to write backend in C# and frontend in JavaScript framework, UI frameworks such as React or Angular, where there is a learning curve to learn two different languages and then different ecosystems, understanding the different ecosystems. This made development complex, switching between languages, duplicating logic, and managing different tool sets. Right? So Blazor solves this by allowing developers to write both server-side and client-side code in C#, eliminating much of that complexity. It also lets you reuse models, validations, and then business logic across the applications, making the workflow smoother and faster. Most importantly, Blazor encourages C# developers to build modern, interactive web UIs without learning new JavaScript framework. Let's see what are the different type of hosting models in Blazor. So Blazor comes in different hosting models to suit different needs. First one is a Blazor WebAssembly, runs entirely in the browser using WebAssembly. No server needed for your application. Entire application will get downloaded on the client side. There is a Blazor server, runs on the server and updates the UI in the browser over a signal connection. Requires a constant connection but lighter client. Blazor Hybrid, along with .NET MOVI, build builds cross-platform desktop and mobile apps by embedding Blazor UI inside native apps. The last one is the Blazor United, which introduced in .NET 8, a new unified model that combines WebAssembly and server hosting seamlessly. So, what are the advantages of using Blazor? So Blazor has many advantages. By writing both front-end and back-end code using only C#, we can achieve the single language full stack applications, reuse the extensive ecosystem of .NET libraries, benefit from strong tooling support such as Visual Studio, hot reload, debugging, and many more. Build reusable UI components like we do in React or Angular, right? Run your applications directly in the browser with Blazor WebAssembly. No plugins or else no third-party tools installation is not required to run it on the browser. Easily interoperate with JavaScript when needed without depending on it. So Blazor is truly a game changer for .NET developers who want to build web applications without switching the tech stacks. Whether you are creating enterprise dashboards, internal tools, or modern single page applications, Blazor gives you the power and flexibility to build efficient and maintainable web apps. That's all with the Blazor introduction. I hope you got a good basic understanding of what Blazor is and why it matters. Now let's move on to the interview questions and then see what you might be asked about Blazor in the process. So yeah, let's start with the list of 15 basic questions on the Blazor. So the first question is, what is Blazor? So as we discussed before, Blazor is a free and open source web framework developed by the Microsoft. It let us build interactive web applications using C Sharp and Razor syntax instead of JavaScript. And Blazor runs on .NET, enabling you to build full stack application. Full stack application in the sense we can write the UI as well as backend logic using just one language, that is C Sharp. This means you can create both the front end and back end using .NET technologies. And second question, what are the different type of Blazor hosting models? We have four different type of hosting models. One is Blazor server. The app runs on the server and then updates the UI via signal or back to the client. The other one is Blazor WebAssembly. The app runs completely in the browser using WebAssembly. And the third one is Blazor Hybrid, used with .NET Movie for building native desktop and mobile apps with Blazor UI. The last one is Blazor United. Introduced in .NET 8, this combines server and WebAssembly into a flexible and then unified approach. Question number 3. What is the difference between Blazor Server and Blazor Assembly? In Blazor Server, the app logic runs on the server. The browser communicates with the server in real time using Signaler. It's a lightweight on the client but needs a constant internet connection. In Blazor WebAssembly, the entire app, including the .NET runtime, runs directly in the browser. Means it works offline and then it doesn't require server round trip because UA will be downloaded on the client side, but on the initial load it will be a bit large. Moving on to the question number 4, what is WebAssembly and then how it is used in Blazor? WebAssembly is a low level bytecode that runs in the browser at a near native speed. In Blazor WebAssembly, your C Sharp code is compiled into WebAssembly, so your app can run fully in the browser without any plugins. This enables client-side apps using just .NET and then C Sharp. We don't require any JavaScript framework or else any UI frameworks. Question number 5. What is Razor syntax in Blazor? Razor is a syntax that combines HTML and then C Sharp in a single file. We can do the HTML design as well as the backend logic in a single file. And in Blazor, Razor syntax is used to define components and pages. It allows us to embed C Sharp code directly within our HTML markup using @ symbol. Moving on to the question number 6, how does Blazor handle routing? So in Blazor, it uses a built-in router that maps URLs to component. So we define routes using the @page directive at the top of your Razor components. This lets to build single page application where the navigation doesn't reload the page. Question number 7. What are components in Blazor? In Blazor, components are the building blocks of the UI. A component is a .razor file that contains both UI markup and logic. Components can be reused, nested, and parameterized, similar to React or Angular components. Question number 8. How do you create a component in Blazor? To create a component, you simply create a new Razor file in your project. Inside the file, you write HTML and C# code using Razor syntax. You can then reuse this component by referencing its name in other components or pages. Moving on to another question, 9. How does data binding work in Blazor? So Blazor supports three type of data bindings. One is one way, two way, and event binding. One way brings displaced data using at the rate of syntax. Two way binding uses the at the rate of bind directive to sync data between UI and code. Whenever we modify on the UI, that will get reflect in the code, and then when we are updating on the code, it will reflect in the UI. That's why it is two-way binding. And then the event binding, it uses our standard implementation of event handlers like onClick. Question number 10. What is dependency injection in Blazor and then how is it used? DI in Blazor allows us to inject services like HTTP client configuration or custom logic into components. You register service in program.cs using builder.service.add and then inject them using at the rate of inject directive or decorate in the square brackets attributes. Question number 11. Can Blazor call JavaScript functions? If yes, how? Yes, Blazor can call JavaScript function using JavaScript interrupt. You use the i.js runtime service in your component and then call js.invokeAsync to execute JavaScript functions. This allows integration with third-party JavaScript libraries or browser APIs when needed. Question 12. How is state management handled in Blazor apps? Blazor supports multiple approaches to state management. For simple apps, you can store state in services. For persistent state, use local storage or session storage with JavaScript interrupt. Or in Blazor server, we have to be very careful because the state is tied to a user connection. What is the life cycle of Blazor component? Blazor components go through several lifecycle methods such as onInitialized, which runs when the component is initialized, onParameters set, called when parameters are set from a parent, on after render, called after the component's renders. We can override this method to add custom logic during the component's lifecycle. Question number 14. What are the advantages of using Blazor over traditional JavaScript framework? Yeah, with Blazor, we can use C# instead of JavaScript for full stack development. We can reuse the .NET Core code and libraries that is already available. And we'll get strong typing, compile time checks, and then rich tooling. And we no need to switch between different languages. And we can build interactive UIs using Blazor components. Question number 15. What are some limitations or challenges of Blazor? Some limitations includes larger initial load time in Blazor WebAssembly because our entire UI will get download on the client. Limited browser APIs compared to JavaScript. JavaScript is exclusive for the browsers, whereas Blazor has very limited browser APIs. Blazor server requires constant internet connection. smaller ecosystem compared to mature JS framework, but it's growing rapidly. So, and that's wraps up our list of basic Blazor interview questions and answers. I hope you find this helpful. If you want more videos on Blazor or .NET, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I will come up with more videos. Thank you.